Welcome to episode number 88 of the Marine Layer podcast. We'll project the current Mariners lineup as it sits in 2024, take a look at the latest transactions in baseball in our MLB Wraparound, and close out the show with a special Speak Your Mind. It is our year one in review for the podcast.
This show is brought to you by our friends over at Pagotcha's Pub 85. That's Pagotcha's Pub 85 in Kirkland, our favorite place to go hang out with our friends, go have some great food, drink some great drinks, and watch all the sports you want to watch, because there's 22 TVs in the place. You want to go watch some college football during bowl season, NFL, NBA, hockey, college hoops, whatever you might want to go and sit and watch. Go over there, Pagotcha's Pub 85, and if you go over during happy hours, you get some great specials, which are Monday through Friday happy hours from 2 to 6 p.m. It includes $3 domestic beers, $4 Manny's Blue Moons, $4 Mac and Jacks, $4 Wells, $4 house wines. Go eat some great pizza and some great food. Go hang out with your friends over at Pagotcha's Pub 85 in Kirkland. And here's your reminder before we start the show. Go download our episodes, leave us that 5-star review, follow the show wherever you get your audio podcast, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube with the full video podcast over there, and follow us on social media on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Well, let's get it rolling. And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network, recording here on Thursday night, December 28th. We have made it, Lyle, the final show of 2023. It has flown by.
It's really flown by. It doesn't feel all that long ago that we were sitting around on FaceTime, making our logo, deciding what we wanted to do for the namesake of the podcast. It really doesn't feel that long ago. And the truth is, it was about 13 months prior now, maybe 13 and a half months prior, when we were thinking of ideas for the name and logo. So yes, technically this is a baker's dozen year that we're calling year one because we started in November of 2022, but we're really calling this year one now that 2023 is about to come to an end. So yeah, it's been a blast.
If we're not cheating, we're not trying. So I'm just going to put that out there. But man, what a year it has been. I think I had high expectations for us in this year. We're going to get a little more into this in our Speak Your Mind. But I just want to say, I think we both easily exceeded expectations. This has been everything I could have imagined this has turned into. Of course, we got to thank the people who tune in and listen to this podcast of why it is what it is. But even when we would dream, we're confident in our abilities, but just to see the results is so cool. It's so cool. Now that we're a full year into this, it really sort of hits home how real this all is.
It's very real. And I'm going to try to save all my thoughts for the end of the show. This is going to be our special Speak Your Mind this week. So I'm going to try not to get too far into it. I do want to say on both ends of this podcast, both bookends, the beginning and the end, everything TJ and I have done is not possible without everybody that listens to the show, watches the show on YouTube, watches any bit of our social media content, everything. It is only possible because all of you guys take the time out of your day to listen to two people just talk about the Mariners, and we really, really appreciate it. So off that, because everybody has been so great and so loyal, there are two things that I want to throw out there at the start of this podcast that I'd love to get listeners, viewers, thoughts on, and you can just ponder it over. If you have thoughts on it, please leave it in the comments because we are trying to gauge some feedback on this. There's two potential ideas we have for year two, and again, we're gonna go more in depth on all of this toward the end of the show. But number one, if we were to do a live show somewhere in year two, would you be interested in showing up? Number two, if we were going to potentially try and make merch in year two, would you be interested? So just ponder those two thoughts. If your answer is no, I'm not interested, that's okay. That's exactly what we're trying to gauge. But those are two potential ideas we have, along with a whole lot more. So just give us some feedback on that if you have any.
By live show, Lyle means in-person live show, not us live streaming on YouTube. And it, like you said, you can leave a comment. You can shoot us an email, marinelayerpod@gmail.com. Please go ahead and send us an email, or you can leave us a voicemail as well. Again, if you want to get more in depth and not leave it in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, a DM on social media is perfectly fine too, wherever you want. So
yeah, we are open to anything and everything. So please ponder those ideas as you listen to this show, and we'll get into it a little bit more in our final segment here on Speak Your Mind. The main subject of this episode, I wanted to cook this up for our final episode of the year. So the Mariners have made a transaction. About a week ago now, they signed Mitch Garver to officially a 2-year, $24 million deal with a mutual option for a third season. So because they've made a move, we can shuffle around what we think the current lineup is for 2024. So I thought this would be a fun exercise for today. What is the current Mariners lineup going to look like for this upcoming season as we sit right now? Is there somewhere you want to start with this, Lyle?
There is 30 seconds I want to add on to the Mitch Garver contract before we get into the lineup, because we found out today that there is a mutual option for a third year in that deal, which we didn't previously know. That's pretty awesome. I mean, along with the contract already being pretty club friendly to begin with, that's a plus for the Mariners. Mutual option. Again, they're not tied into it. That means it could go either way after the 2 years. They have to mutually decide if Garver will stick around. So I certainly like that.
So if it works out great, then he will stay a Mariner. Now, however, he could, turn into Barry Bonds for 2 seasons and then realize, well, I'm kind of playing on a discount here. I think I could earn more money. So maybe there's a bit of a measured output needed for that mutual option. But you're right. It is as team friendly as it gets. And this is a chance, like, bang for your buck offense to be like very valuable to the Mariners. And they really are pinching pennies. That works out, and it's an A+ signing for Jerry Dipoto, given he stays healthy. Okay, Lyle, the lineup. He's going to sit right in the middle of that lineup. But where are you looking at with this lineup? Why don't you give me, let's start off with the right-handed lineup. I want you to give me your right-handed version of this projected lineup for the Mariners.
So as it sits right now, the first 3 you can pretty easily pencil in. It's JP leading off, playing shortstop. Julio hits second in center field. Cal hits third, doing the catching. I have Mitch Garver fourth at DH. Ty France hitting fifth, playing first. And then 6 through 9 is where it gets interesting. So we have Dom Canzone playing left in the 6th spot. Cade Marlowe hitting 7th in right field. Luis Urias hitting 8th at third base. Josh Rojas hitting 9th, playing second. Is there anything different in your lineup compared to mine with the righties?
I had Dylan Moore in there. I don't know if there's that much difference with Demo and Cade in there, unless you really think Cade's going to crush righties here in 2024, which he could. But knowing Scott Service, it very realistically could be Demo getting an outfield spot, whether it's a lefty or a righty, and batting in that 7 hole. So that was the only difference there. I think the top 3 or even top 4 are going to stay the exact same, or actually top 5 will stay the same no matter who's on the bump for how I'm going to project this, especially with the righty, right? Because you have 3 of your big boppers here at the top of the lineup against righties, Julio, Mitch Garver, and Ty France, who against righties will bat there. So against lefties, they almost certainly will bat there as well. This lineup is fine. It's fine. You can shuffle around the bottom 4. I think Rojas is staying put at the 9 hole. I think we figured out they really like Rojas at the 9 hole. So maybe just 6 through 8 is what you decide to flip-flop around. If you have a different 6 through 8 in the Mariners lineup, that's fine. I don't know if there's that much difference in shuffling Dom Canzone, Dylan Moore / Cade Marlowe, and then Luis Urias at third. There's not much there.
No, there's not. And not only do the Mariners like Josh Rojas in the 9 spot, I actually like Josh Rojas in the 9 spot. I think you do too, especially when he was really swinging it well in August, early September. You can see why they acquired him. You can see why he has some value. Now, that being said, he is a good 9 hitter if you go and acquire more bats. We have said 2 things regarding the 2 guys that they acquired for Paul Sewald. If Josh Rojas is the 9 hitter on a good offensive team, that's totally fine. And then if Dom Canzone is the one guy that you have, if Dom Canzone's the one guy in the lineup where you don't know exactly what you're getting yet, because again, he hasn't played that many big league games yet, right? He's still got some developing to do. But if he's the one guy that you let learn on the fly, I am okay with that, because I think he truly has a chance to break out. I'm not just saying that because we just had him on the podcast. We said that before we had him on the podcast, that he has a chance to be Mitch Haniger, where he got a taste of the big leagues. Then in his first full season, he breaks out at 26, just like Mitch did. I believe that. That being said, that is okay with both Rojas and Canzone if you upgrade right field and third base. But as we currently sit, they have not. And as a result of that, the bottom half of this lineup has some question marks.
It certainly does. But let's look at some real positives with this lineup. First of all, the top 3. absolute dogs. Expecting improvements from all three still here in 2024, I think leaves a lot for people to get excited about. And like, let's go down to Rojas, back to the 9 spot. If you can get that 349 on base percentage that Rojas put up in 2022 in that 9 spot, think of an 11% walk rate in your 9 hole, a 14% walk rate, give or take, however JP Crawford's output is in 2024 at that 1 spot, and then masher right after that in Cal and Julio. I mean, those are your 230 home run guys right there. And then Garver, if he stays healthy, will also hit 30 home runs in that cleanup spot. So you have 2 great on-base guys in the 9 and 1 hole, and then you have 3 guys who can absolutely crush the baseball. That's a run producing 5 guys right there, if everything works out. I did not include Ty France in there. I think a lot of people, myself included, are having a little bit of PTSD from Ty France's 2023 season and would like to see some driveline results before we say, okay, that's now actually 6 spots in the lineup that if they are all clicking and hitting well, I really think the Mariners are going to score some runs with those 6. The problem is the other 3.
I'll even add another. Again, this is a hypothetical, just like Ty France bouncing back after going to driveline is a hypothetical. But if Dom truly figures it out this year and he puts up a 110, 115 WRC plus, add another. That's 7 guys that could really hit. And then what do we come back to? Again, right field, third base. But there is a world where, again, this is best case scenario we're playing out here. But if all those guys click, it's a good lineup. It's a good lineup on the expectation that that will not be your right fielder and third baseman when the year starts.
Now, yeah, that's the big question. If we go look at the lefty lineup, it's not too much different. At this point, there's a little bit more shuffling. The top 5 is the exact same, or at least I have the top 5 is the exact same. Demo bumps up to the 6th spot. Luis Urias bumps up 1 spot to the 7th spot. Sam Haggerty bats 8th. And then either Cabby or Ryan Bliss bats in the 9 hole. That is not quite as productive.
Nitpicking with my own lineup, but it's close enough. My first 5 are the exact same, just like you. Demo, I have at 6, just like you. I put Haggerty at 7, kept Urias at 8th, and Cabby's at 9. Look, Jose Caballero, Sam Haggerty, and Dylan Moore all have roles. I like what all 3 of them do as utility players. Those guys are phenomenal bench bats and utility role guys. What have I said about Demo? Everybody who knows me and listens to this podcast knows I love Dylan Moore. But I love Dylan Moore in the role he plays. Dylan Moore is an everyday guy. You're probably not using him to the best of his abilities. And I think that with Sam Haggerty. I think that with Jose Caballero. Those guys are at their best when they are playing a certain role. And that's okay. Teams need role players. And role players can be very effective and very productive. We know Sam Haggerty steals bases. He can play some solid defense. He can get on base a little bit when he's right. But those guys are not meant to be starting 140 plus games a year. That's just not who they really are to this point in their careers. So to see that as the 6 through 9, I would say, again, let's find some reinforcements.
Now, this lineup could change a little bit against lefties if they decide that Cal needs a day off and they decide to give him a day off against a lefty when he hits righty. And then the question is it Sebi Zavala behind the plate, Garver still DHing? Is it Garver behind the plate and one of the role players DHing as a day off? Those are some options too. Then that lineup gets a little bit weaker, and you're talking about, I don't know, if Ryan Bliss and Cabby are on the roster at the same time, one of them could DH. They could DH Cal, but that's not really a day off. Or they could DH Canzone as like put like something against a lefty, but still, like we're reaching here. Like we are absolutely reaching.
I think people have to get the idea out of their head that Mitch Garver could be catching. I think he is almost permanently going to be the DH, maybe once in a blue moon in an absolute worst case scenario where you burn through some of your bench, maybe somebody goes down mid-game with an injury, and you had to use Garver behind the plate. That's the only scenario I think you really see it, because again, he's had injuries and his defense back there behind the plate is not great. So I think it is going to be Sebi Zavala if you give Cal a day off. So then in that scenario, you have JP, Julio, and Mitch Garver, but then it gets very, very interesting after that. What we are kind of getting to the bottom of here is no groundbreaking information. It's something that every single person listening to us currently knows, and that is they need to add more offense.
That's good analysis, Lyle. Where'd you come up with that?
Groundbreaking. Like I'm the first one to I'm the first one to discover that. I'm the pioneer of Mariners need more offense. Pin it down.
Okay, so you look at this lineup. What's the one spot that like needs to be next? What is it? Like, is it third base? Like if I'm looking at this lineup and looking at the offense that's in this lineup, I mean, I'd probably say third base is next.
You have to pick between two. I think I'm actually going to say right field before third base. And I say that because Luis Urias had a bad year last year. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He has had successful years in the past. If you want to look at glass half full, he's been a 2-win player in the past. Right field right now is currently a lot of unknown, like more than Urias. So if I had to pick right now, what's the next spot you go fill? I think it has to be the other outfield spot. Maybe you play Cam Zone and right, and whoever you acquire plays left. But point being, one other outfielder needs to be acquired via trade or free agency next. That is my 2 cents.
Okay, well that's a pretty good. You're pitching me pretty well on that.
All right. Well, look, third base after that, like they need to fill both. I'm not saying start Luis Urias at third base on opening day, but I think they need to fill the outfield spot first.
And if Jerry's up in the suite coin flipping on which one he's going to acquire next, like whatever side of the coin it lands on, I probably won't be that disappointed either way. So that's the projected lineup. Please don't direct negative comments at us for reciting what the lineup will currently be. That is my one request, because it's not going to be received very well. So that's my one request, please.
TJ, that is called shooting the messenger.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, please. And thank you.
We are sitting here reciting facts on paper. Not this is what we want to pencil it in for on opening day if it's up to us. This is, as we currently sit, this is what the lineup is.
Listen, if you want to get more angry, the Mariners 26-man active roster is online. Please, MLB.com/Mariners, click the roster tab, sit there, take a deep breath. I think you can do it. Meditation. Yeah, that's a good option. Before we get to our MLB wraparound, a word from our friends over at Simply Seattle. I know Christmas is past, but we still can't recommend Simply Seattle enough for all the gear that we have gotten from them over the course of this podcast. I have a great Sonics crew neck that I love wearing. Also a Seahawks throwback cap. Lyle has a Julio sweatshirt. The gear is top notch. And if you want to get some of that gear or some gear of your own, Husky gear, Kraken gear, Mariner gear, Seahawk gear, Sonic gear, Pacific Northwest themed gear, you can go to our friends at simplyseattle.com and use our code Marine15 for 15% off your order. Again, that's 15% off your order at simplyseattle.com. Use our code Marine15 at checkout. Okay, Lyle, let's get to our MLB wraparound. Up first, this came in right after we hit publish last week, or on our Wednesday, on our last week before Christmas on our Friday episode. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 12 years, $325 million with the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have now spent $1.1 billion this offseason. Lyle, let me rephrase that. They've spent $1.1 billion this offseason. That's not a million, folks. That is a billion with a B. The big bucks. And are they the monsters from Space Jam?
They are the monsters from Space Jam, absolutely. Also, if you want to factor in the Tyler Glasnow extension, I think it's even more.
So we round up to 1.2?
Yeah. What am I... Yeah, exactly.
700, 325, 135. Yeah, that's about 1.2.
Yeah. So $1.2 billion on 3 players. And you know what? I knew this was going to happen with Yamamoto and the Dodgers the second they announced almost all of Ohtani's money was getting deferred. As soon as I saw that, I said, they're getting Yamamoto, aren't they? And they did. I know there was rumors saying the Yankees were very much in on him. The Mets were very much in on him. There was a couple other teams in the sweepstakes. I thought it was going to be the Dodgers until it wasn't by the time I saw the Ohtani news. And it is, in fact, the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's really unbelievable, isn't it? That is a team, we've harped on it a ton. best front office in baseball, one of the best ownership groups in baseball. They are the model franchise. I know they only have one World Series in a shortened season to show for it, but I don't care. What they have done over the last decade is the model of Major League Baseball.
And one of the best RSN deals in baseball, too, might I add. There is a big reason why the Dodgers have been out in front of this offseason and acquiring players and spending money. And Lyle, I think you and I would agree the rest of Major League Baseball has kind of sat back and sat on their hands a little bit. So it's not really a mystery. They seem unaffected by what the future of the finances of Major League Baseball and its distribution model is, which is incredible. Here's the most bonkers stat from this. The Los Angeles Dodgers will have Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto under contract for the next 2 seasons combined at $29 million. Each of the next 2 seasons, $29 million. And for some context on that, the Dodgers don't owe any deferral money, if you remember, for this Ohtani contract for 2 seasons.
That's pretty crazy. You know what else the Dodgers just did? They just bought about 100 million more fans. You know what all of Japan is going to do now? Be Dodgers fans. You know what I could almost guarantee? Japan is going to be showing and broadcasting a ton of Dodgers games this year, because when you have 2 of the country's greatest superstars on one team and the greatest player in the world being one of those 2 superstars on that team, who's everybody going to root for? Of course, it's the Dodgers. They're going to be showing a ton of Dodgers games. So you know what the Dodgers are doing with these 2 contracts? They're just making more money. This is a total cash cow. I know they've spent over $1 billion on these 2 guys, but they're going to absolutely make it all back and then some, because they're superstars. The TV contracts are going to pay for itself, the jersey sales, the ticket sales, everything. Spend money to make money, people. That's exactly what they're doing.
That rotation now is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. Glasnow, Yamamoto, Walker Buehler, and Bobby Miller. And I'm missing one, aren't I?
Well, Emmett Sheehan would be the 5th right now. But you know what? Mid-season, when I am positive Clayton Kershaw is signing back with this team and he gets back, that's your 5 starter. A surefire first ballot Hall of Famer who is still not totally fallen off, and Clayton Kershaw would be your 5.
Oh, and then Ohtani will, get healthy for next season, and then he's your 5.
Well, it's going to become a 6-man rotation with Ohtani, but yeah.
Okay, so he will be your 5, and someone else will be your 6. So,
boo-hoo. Well, is Ohtani not the 1 when he comes back?
They all have to pitch.
Yeah, they all have to pitch. That's true. They do. So,
And just to think in 2025, remember, he probably won't be totally back. See, he won't be able to rehab this year, his Tommy John. So next year, he's going to have to ease back in a little bit easier than he would if he had August and September to rehab. Instead of rehabbing, he's going to be DHing and probably leading the Dodgers to a World Series title. So just to keep that in mind. So he might, honestly, Ohtani might not be the number 1 in LA until 2026.
Okay, fair. Yeah, that is quite the rotation. Yeah, and you brought him up. Our coworker, Walker Buehler, who obviously has no clue who we are, but by a technicality, our coworker, because he has started just baseball. So he's getting back this year, which is good for him.
Is it not? Can we zoom out here for a second? Can we acknowledge that a player who has never thrown a pitch in Major League Baseball earned the most guaranteed money ever for a pitcher?
Oh, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And look, Yamamoto is probably going to be an ace. You're talking about a guy with a career sub-2 ERA in Japan, deadly splitter, really good fastball, 3 true plus pitches. Guy threw 4 no-hitters in Japan. He won 3 Japanese Triple Crowns. He won 2 MVPs. I mean, resume is through the roof at age 25, but still, that's the NPB compared to Major League Baseball. And the fact he has not thrown 1 pitch, they said, yeah, take all our money, top every pitcher's contract ever, including Garrett Cole's. Pretty wild.
Yeah, earning more money than Garrett Cole is bizarre. It is bizarre.
I think it has to do with the fact that he is 25. When Garrett Cole got his contract, he was about 5-6 years ahead of where Yamamoto is. Where Yamamoto, you don't see free agents hit the market at 25 years old.
He was. And again, the AAV isn't as absurd because of 12 years. Again, he's only netting about $27 million a year, which is far behind Garrett Cole in AAV, but he's got him in total guaranteed money as well. There's one other point I was trying to make, and It just totally slipped my mind.
I'm going to make a couple more while you potentially think about it. Number one, Yamamoto is so interesting, and Jeff Passan's written some stories about this and talked about this. He doesn't lift any weights. Like, it's so funny to see that picture of Ohtani and Yamamoto next to each other with both of them just wearing the white t-shirts, where Yamamoto's kind of a scrawny dude. They talk about how the reason he throws hard and the reason he has so much success is he does yoga, he does stretching, he does like plyos, he doesn't lift weights. All of his success is off that, which is crazy. And then you see Shohei standing next to him, who's like 6'3", 6'4", absolutely jacked, obviously lifts weights. It is very funny to see the difference. But yeah, two very different pitchers that go about their business in very different ways. But Yamamoto is probably going to be a true ace.
I know it's not a perfect science. Like, in theory, you work out more, you have more muscle to get injured. That is correct. That's why you can't be too bulky, otherwise you're gonna end up getting hurt. Mm-hmm. But that's just bizarre, because how does we got to think of the durability factor of Yamamoto too. He's not the biggest guy in the world. Do I have to bring up Tim Lincecum? Like, do I have to? He had a wonky delivery, sure, but we're talking a guy who is 5'10", 170 pounds soaking wet, and his arm blew out at 28. How old was Tim Lincecum when he was 28? Won 2 Cy Young Awards, blew everyone away, and then, boom, he was done. He went from a potential Cy Young winner in 2010 in the Giants' first World Series run to pitching out of the bullpen 2 years later in the World Series. It happens fast.
It is crazy. And we'll see if Yamamoto's routine changes at all over here with the Dodgers, but that is how he's found success so far. Again, for anybody that's interested in it, Jeff Passan's written about it, and I found it pretty interesting. So, yeah, a little bit of an unorthodox, unique routine, because you don't see most guys just opt out of lifting weights, but that's what's worked for him. Here's the second point I wanted to make. Speaking of aces from Japan, did you see the report today that now Roki Sasaki might get posted next winter?
Next winter, yeah. I know the rumors got kind of pushed out the door of him doing it this offseason, because the team he pitches for was like, no, I don't think so. But if he was next offseason, I know where you're going with this, because if there's any chance in hell the Mariners can sign him, it would be if he gets posted before he's 25. Because if he waits until he's 25 to get posted, he might add $100 million to Yamamoto's number, at least. But if he gets posted before 25, he's going to get $7 million.
International signing money. That's it. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is I've given this lukewarm take, quote unquote, before on the show, and I'm going to do it again here with Roki Sasaki. Just as a pure pitcher, I think he's better than both Ohtani and Yamamoto. And obviously Ohtani is the best player in the world because Sasaki does not hit. But as a pure pitcher, I think he is better than both of those guys. He is 22 years old right now, or maybe actually he still might be 21. Point being, when he comes over to the big leagues, if he really does it next year, he will be 22 or 23 years old. And if he were going to wait, he could get $400+ million from a team at this point. But 101 miles an hour, ridiculous stuff. He's even, his numbers have been better at points than Yamamoto's has. That guy, man, if he comes over here and it can only be signed with international slot money, it is going to be a bidding war beyond bidding wars of all teams for him.
See, I feel like, am I crazy for thinking it's that he should just wait? Why not just wait? Because he could sign as soon as he hits 25. If he's that good, he could sign a 13-year contract. 13 years. Instead, remember, if he comes over next season, he's locked into a 6-year deal where he's going to be making MLB minimum wage for 3 seasons. And then by the time he hits 25, because that's when he would hit arbitration, then he would finally start earning more than that. So then he would earn what? $6-7 million potentially in his first arbitration. Then in his next one, he'd earn $12 million, let's say. And then his last one is the one he would really earn what he's actually worth. If he lives up to all of his hype, he would earn $30 million, $35 million. It could be higher by then. And then he could sign a 10-year contract for however much money. But why not? I feel like it's a better financial decision to get an extra few years and just come over when you're 25. You just, barring absolute disaster in Japan, you're going to get that $450 million if you come over at age 25. So why risk coming over the big leagues and having to wait out 3 more just strenuous seasons of pitching in America? Or 6 more seasons of pitching in America without the potential of signing an extension.
Oh, I would wait if I was him. He may not care about the money, but if I was him, I'd wait till I was 25 and just stay healthy and dominate for a couple more seasons in Japan, and then get all your money when you come over to the U.S. That's what I would do. But it sounds like he may just want to pitch in the majors as soon as he possibly can, which, credit to him. That's what Ohtani did. Maybe that's what he cares about more. Maybe it's not all about the money for him. And if he comes over here, man, it's going to be wild. You know what the Mariners should do in that scenario? Say, hey, Dodgers, I see your Ohtani and Yamamoto hand, and I can't quite call it a call. I'm not going to say this is calling the hand, but I will say I will respond with Munetaka Murakami and Roki Sasaki.
Wow. Can we teach Murakami to pitch?
Ooh. How hard do we think he could throw? He could probably throw decently hard.
I mean, he could probably hit 90. Yeah. We can work from there.
If you throw 90, that's a good start. Man, now I'm just speaking just total ridiculous hypotheticals into existence. Although, that is the only scenario where the Mariners would sign Roki Sasaki. They're not giving him $400 million in a few years if he waits. But if he comes over next year, there's a shot. Although, I hate to say it, especially if he's going to cost no money, he's going to go to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
He's going to go to the Dodgers.
That would be a dream for them because he just want to go play with the other two.
Dude, like I can see it. I can see it clear as day, literally clear as day. For $3 million, he's going to go spend 6 years with the Dodgers.
And you know why money wouldn't matter to him? He's not going to get the endorsement deals that Shohei would get, but say he's making like $700,000 from the Dodgers, get some endorsement money, and he'd be just fine. Just an extra couple $1 million, he'd be perfect.
Yeah, you think the Dodgers are the Monstars now? I don't even know what they'd be if you added Roki Sasaki. The Monstars on, I would say on steroids, but whatever fuel they took from all the NBA players in Space Jam, that basically was steroids. So just notch it up another level, I guess, if they got Sasaki.
And the thing is, it also wouldn't just be the Dodgers. The Mariners would have more competition if everyone else could sign him. The unfortunate thing is, well, everyone else could potentially sign him with their international signing money. So that would be quite a bidding process. Does Jerry want to record an episode of The Wheelhouse to talk about it? You think?
I'm down.
Should he start projecting it right now?
I'm down to listen to him talk about Roki Sasaki. I doubt he'd do it.
Maybe just leave out the part of his the presentation they're going to give to him.
Yeah, that's fine. You can I'm sure he learned his lesson the first time with Shohei.
Yeah.
So okay, we did spend a little bit of time on that segment, but Yamamoto was a huge story, so that's why we did. Second storyline here, certainly not the headliner of Yamamoto, but the Blue Jays make 2 signings. They get Kevin Kiermaier and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. They have gone from being the runner-up in the Ohtani sweepstakes and being in on Cody Bellinger to now Kevin Kiermaier and IKF.
Can we get like a line graph of happiness for Blue Jays fans? It's like the win probability chart, except for Blue Jays fans' happiness. Over the course of, so how many weeks has it been? 3 weeks? So Ohtani signed?
Yeah.
About 3 weeks. Actually, 3 weeks exactly, because it's Friday. So 3 weeks since the flight.
I was going to say he signed on a Saturday.
3 weeks since the flight when this episode comes out, which is the top of this chart. And it goes down. And then we had this like enormous drop, of course, after he signed with the Dodgers, and the entire country of Canada was like, we had him. He was coming. And then it continues to go down and down. And the fact that, I mean, they're now going to have 2 full-time lineup spots pretty much to Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Kevin Kiermaier. They're paying those 2. You know how I said the Dodgers are going to pay a combined only $29 million for Yamamoto and Ohtani next season? Well, the Blue Jays are going to combine to pay $18.25 million to IKF and Kevin Kiermaier. Man, that is a step down for $11 million less. Holy crap.
You know what I would say to that? I'm happy the Mariners got Mitch Garver. And I will tell you why, because paying $12 million a year for Mitch Garver, give me him over these 2. No offense to them. They have value in certain ways. Both of them are good defenders. But if you're talking about needing offense, I just don't get it. Kiermaier was a little bit above league average as a bat, and we know he's an impeccable defender. But Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, I don't get it. 2 years for $15 million, and it's not that much, but I know he's a Swiss Army knife and can play a lot of places. This dude's career high WRC plus is 91, and that was in a shortened 2020. Other than that, he's never cracked 90 in a full season. You put up a 90 WRC plus, you're 10% below league average as a hitter. He hasn't even gotten there. I don't know, man. It has been quite the whirlwind of an offseason for Toronto. Again, going from Ohtani and Bellinger to these two.
At the start of the offseason, they had about one splash acquisition in their bucket, and while being able to stay under the tax. They're only $7 million away from the bottom tax tier right now. They're at $230 million on their payroll after these two additions. I mean, wouldn't you rather take this $18 million off your payroll for next season and then add Cody Bellinger in instead? For what,
for sure.
$25 million? And then you'd still be under. And by the way, Cody's a pretty good defender out there in the outfield, just like Kevin Kiermaier is, and he can hit.
Wild offseason. I'm guessing Cody just told him no, or Scott Boras said, you guys aren't offering the money we want.
Re-signed Teoscar. How the hell do you go from Cody Bellinger and Shohei Ohtani to this? Aren't you supposed to contend?
You know who's happy about this? The Mariners, because the Blue Jays are a team that's neck and neck with them every year, especially for those wild card spots. And as we sit right now, they're getting worse.
Yeah, they're worse. They are worse.
And they're probably going to lose Matt Chapman.
Man, this is just mind-boggling. Like, this is very, very puzzling. And it's like, it is essentially like, so they lose Whit Merrifield to free agency and then sign him back with a different name?
Basically. And honestly, you're arguing that you have a worse bat now than Merrifield. Again, IKF has never really hit. So this is a head scratcher. Also, where is all this Blue Jays payroll stemming from right now to begin with, especially after losing Chapman? I mean, you have Gausman under contract, you have Barrios under contract, you have Kikuchi under contract, but they don't have a ton of massive deals on the books, right? I mean, some guys are going to start to hit arbitration. I don't know.
I can look it up if you can give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, I can. I was just trying to think off the rip about the Blue Jays really have that much money on the books when you said they're that
I was thinking that too. I mean, remember Bo Bichette and Vladdy are getting into arbitration.
Yeah. So ARB guys, which makes sense, but still, that feels like a lot of money.
Springer, $24 million. Chris Bassett, $22 million. Bo Bichette's making 12 this year. Vladdy's projected for 19. Let's see.
So this is a lot of money on the books. Yeah.
Okay. It seems like, so this is I believe this is pre-arbitration numbers. So I think once the arbitration numbers calculate in, they're going to be at about 230 million. They're, actually Spotrac, I might have overshot this a little bit here. The article I read might have miscalculated. I see $200 million here on Spotrac. However, regardless, I believe there still needs to be some money added in there because of 40-man guys and arbitration numbers. However, that is still a lot of money for a roster that is not getting much better.
I was going to say that's still a lot, $200 million on the books. And they have a lot of pitchers signed, but they have Springer signed, guys in arbitration. But yeah, that's pretty wild. I don't know. Like as the Blue Jays sit right now, are they a playoff team? TBD.
Probably with the format, probably, but like barely.
Yeah, they're on the brink. The fact that you're not definitively saying yes tells you a lot about what you need to know about them right now. And I know they just got in last year too, but they just got in last year with a roster that was definitively better.
It doesn't make much sense. Does not make much sense to me. I did see, I was scrolling on, I don't know if it was TikTok or something, but people are not loving Ross Atkins recently.
I can't blame them. I mean, People are probably saying, what happened to all the money? You reportedly offered Shohei just about $700 million, and now you've resorted to some money for Kevin Kiermaier, a little bit of money for IKF. That isn't exactly inspiring.
And think about this, right? So they're going to have George Springer in their outfield this year, and they're going to put Kiermaier out there again with him. And they have Varsho as well. So you're going to have a off-injured George Springer off a down year. You're going to have Kevin Kiermaier, light-hitting defense-first outfielder. And then you're going to have Dalton Varsho, who they traded a haul for last season, a defense-first light-hitting outfielder. That's not very intimidating in a hitter's division.
And you better hope Vladdy bounces back because he didn't have a great year last year.
No. So that's why it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I saw it put it this way. Like, why isn't Varsho in center field after you gave all that up for him? Wouldn't that make more sense?
I would think. I would say. I mean, Varsho played some center field last year.
Like, what's the difference between Kiermaier and Varsho? One's younger. Why not stick him out there? I mean, you just traded Gabriel Moreno for him.
And Varsho's upside with the bat is probably a little bit greater than Kiermaier's is. But again, it's not by a lot.
It's just puzzling. You know who's happy right now? Yankee fans.
Oh, them too. And again, a lot of teams that are in the wild card contention, like the Mariners.
No, that was not the reason. I think I've seen enough tweets about IKF to fill up a dumpster.
Yeah, well, that part is true. You know what? Yankees fans can never be content despite being the most successful franchise in the history of baseball. There is always somebody that
most
deserves...
successful franchise in the history of American sports.
Oh, good call. But they always have to have somebody to rip, and to rip to absolute shreds, because we know nobody does it like New York fans in terms of just slandering your own players.
Good job, Blue Jays. Good job, Blue Jays. The Mariners, thank you for your services. Yeah, man, what a mess they have. What a mess. Okay, Lyle, let's get to Speak Your Mind. We have a special Speak Your Mind this week. Since it is the last episode of the year, we wanted to give our first year in review. And Lyle, what a year it has been. We started this podcast. Again, we're saying it's going to be about a baker's dozen year of months. So about 13 and a half months this podcast has been going on. And here we are, all this time later, where we can finally review it all. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I can picture us recording the first episode right here, and we were giving our review of the Mariners season in 2022. I don't know how many downloads we got on that episode. I don't know how many people watched it. But to see where we are at right now, reviewing this here on December 28th, 2023, is pretty mind-blowing.
It's really mind-blowing. Before I even get even deeper into that, wasn't there one other thing you wanted to bring up for more of the lighthearted part of Speak Your Mind today?
Oh!
I think there's one thing we have to bring up before we get into...
thing. I jumped the gun. How could we? How could we not? It was almost 1 year ago today, Lyle, that we did another special Speak Your Mind on this very subject. And yes, we're going to do another one. Ladies and gentlemen.
We are going to hold off very briefly for about 2 minutes on the year one review, because there's one thing we just have to get to. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. Russell Wilson's been benched.
And expected to now be cut after a massive $250 million extension from the Denver Broncos after they traded 2 firsts, 2 seconds, Shelby Harris, Drew Lock, and Noah Fant for him.
Wow. Broncos country?
Let's ride.
Yeah. What's the craziest thing about this? Like, what's our tier list of craziest things? I think number one for me, the extension he signed when he got to Denver, he's still not playing on it. And he won't ever play a snap for the Broncos on that contract.
Yeah, that's still the Seahawks money he's playing with. That part's crazy. I think the fact he crashed and burned as badly as he did is still pretty shocking. We could see his play starting to deteriorate that final year in Seattle, and even some of the second half of 2020. But to have it just absolutely light on fire the way it has the last 2 years in Denver, I don't think anybody could have predicted that. I don't even think Pete Carroll and John Schneider predicted that when they traded him. So to see that happen is nuts. But also the fact that he's done most of this to himself. Like, this is a lot of this is very self-inflicted on Russell Wilson.
Yeah, like he tried to get Pete fired and John Schneider fired to stay in Seattle. That did not work. So instead, he got a trade. What he wanted. It was in his contract. He had a full no trade clause. They ran some ideas by him. And he went to Denver. He got to handpick his head coach. He got an office. He got the offense he wanted. He got to sit in the pocket and pass. And as Lyle said, what a failure it was. So they bring in a coach and Sean Payton, a Hall of Famer himself, who is under no obligation or loyalty to Russell Wilson in an attempt to fix it. And it turned out Sean Payton could not stand having Russell Wilson run his offense. It's not very surprising, Lyle. I really don't think Sean Payton ever wanted Russ. I don't think it took Sean Payton very long to realize Russell Wilson was not the quarterback he needed to operate efficiently. And people are going to point to Russ's stats from this season. Well, Sean Payton's going to throw some tape on and say, hey, listen, this is not a $49 million quarterback that's playing the position. He's made some good plays here and there. His numbers look pretty good. But this is not worth $49 million a year. This contract is crushing our team, and it cannot continue any further. So the total number, I think, for next season is going to be, 35 and a half dead cap for the Broncos. And then they're going to owe another enormous chunk of change in 2025 as well, on top of it, to finish out the guarantees.
Incredible stuff. You know who does think he's worth $49 million a year? Russell Wilson himself, considering as soon as the news broke, he jumped onto Twitter and started liking tweets that he was actually outplaying Patrick Mahomes, but he got benched. Yeah, I don't think so, dog. I really don't think so, pal. That's really
the first time we've ever seen that from Russ. Do a petty like storm on social media.
Well, it's not the first time we've seen him be petty, but it's the first time on social media specifically where I'm thinking to myself, buddy, do you know your likes are public or
yes.
what?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
And dog, we know who liked those tweets.
Oh, that had Mark Rogers written all over it.
Yeah.
So
he's like,
whatever
Russ,
team,
give me your phone, buddy.
Yeah. Whatever team Russell goes to next, whether it's the Commanders, whether it's the Falcons, whether it's the Patriots, whoever, if you're a fan of that team, just get ready for the Mark Rogers experience. Learn the name Mark Rogers and get ready for the experience, because you will feel it.
You just got to think, where is Russ's ego at right now? It's
Low.
got it is not what it was. It cannot be. There's no humanly possible way that Russ is now going to get cut less than 2 years after being traded for and still have that ego. I think it's going to be different. People are human. They learn from their mistakes. And obviously this has been a monumental mistake. Russell Wilson was a Hall of Fame quarterback when he got traded. Hall of Fame. I will die on that hill. He was a Hall of Famer when he left Seattle. Can't really say that now. His not only is his play taking a hit, but his reputation is shattered.
That play in his final game starting, where he just sat in the pocket forever, took a sack, he held the ball way too long, and his offensive lineman just looked at him. I was like, oh, well, whatever. Usually when a quarterback gets sacked, your O-linemen help you up. They just looked at Russ and they said, yeah, no thanks, you can get up on your own. And that was a big signal that, yeah, he had kind of lost the locker room. And we know he's done this throughout his career. He's made a lot of enemies out of teammates by the way he's carried himself. So kind of happened in Denver now too.
And I think the week before was pretty telling too, when you saw Sean Payton just rip into him. I mean, I don't know if Pete would never do such a thing. I mean, Sean Payton just lit Russ up on the sideline, and most quarterbacks, Lyle, would shout right back at Sean Payton and have something to say. Russell Wilson, did he open his mouth? No, he didn't. Tom Brady wouldn't have taken that. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have taken that. Peyton Manning wouldn't have taken that. Nope.
No. What a wild 2 years. We'll see what happens next. But yeah, we figured with that news, we had to spend at least a couple minutes on it here.
So is this the worst trade in NFL history?
I think it has to be. Can you think of one worse?
close. What was the trade with the Vikings? All the first round was that Emmitt Smith. What trade was that?
Oh yeah,
Herschel Walker.
Yeah, that was a bad one too.
That one might have been worse because that was how many picks?
It was like
because that fueled that trade like fueled a dynasty literally. So maybe this one comes in at second.
It's up there though, which is pretty wild. And now what do the Seahawks have? They have the chance to make the second. They have the chance to get in the playoffs for the second year in a row without Russ. I know the NFC's pretty weak, but still they do. And they have their star corner of the future in Devin Witherspoon, and they have a really good left tackle in Charles Cross. So they got a lot out of that trade. Oh, and Boye Mafe, who's been a stud on the D-line. So they got a lot out of that trade.
Last thing on this before we move on. Would you take Russ back?
Nope, absolutely not. I know people are already stirring that up on Twitter. No thanks. One, I'd just stick with Geno. And two, the way I think Geno, despite his limitations this year, I think I would still take over Russ. And two, you can't bring Russ back the way he left. It wasn't like he left on good terms. He got booed in his first game back. Like, he tried to get Pete Carroll and John Schneider fired. The only way he's coming back here is if Pete and John aren't here anymore. And even then, I still have my doubts.
No, I don't think that would be the case because Jody Allen still owns the team. Jody made a decision. He went straight to her with that request, and she sent him to Denver.
Yeah. So yeah, I do not think he's going to be back in Seattle.
And also, like, it also just doesn't make roster sense. Why would the Seahawks sign a 36-year-old quarterback next season? Like, no, they need to draft a quarterback.
Yeah. And until then, stick with Geno.
Yeah. This dude was going to get a statue.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to get a statue.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
Nope. Yeah. Listen, at some point in time, when it's all said and done and they bring him back to Seattle, he's not going to get a statue anymore. But when they sing his praises when his career's over, I'm sure people will appreciate what he did. But right now, he's done again.
He'll still be in the Ring of Honor. He'll still be in there with most of those guys. But that's it.
He's slandered his own name in a lot of ways. Again, he did a lot of this to himself. So we'll see what's next for Russ. All right, let's get to the positive thing here. I know we wanted to spend a few minutes on that, but year one of the Marine Layer pod. This is our last episode, and it's pretty cool to kind of reflect back and see where it started versus where it finished. I know we spent a couple minutes on this at the start of the show, but I never would have imagined that in year one, we would have been so lucky and fortunate enough to do everything that we did. And because we've done all that we've done, I'm just blown away. I'm blown away by all the support, first and foremost, all the people that take time out of their day to listen, but by all the things too that we've been so lucky that we've gotten to do so far. And to do it all in year one, it really has been a blast.
It's just crazy to think about just some of the numbers we look at of people that actually listen. Like, I can't believe there are like the amount of people that sit down and listen to us.
Yeah.
Like, we're just like two regular people. That's it. Like, we both have college degrees. You're 26, I'm 25, but like, that's it. Like, we played high school baseball. Yeah. There's nothing like no draft status, no former players, but still, despite all that, like, some of the numbers we see of people tuning in to listen and the response we get and the interaction we get is incredible. Like, it's mind-boggling. And the thing is, like, some of the things we're going to note here in this segment of the things we've gotten to do this year, like, if no one was listening to us, we wouldn't be doing any of it. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, not worth some of the time that we would put into it. Like, certainly. Like, Lyle, like, we wouldn't be doing as much as we do if we weren't getting the feedback back. Because it's just hard to do, psyche-wise, for people that are trying to make content and trying to talk about things they're passionate about. If people don't reciprocate that back to you, it is really hard to keep going. I mean, it is really hard. But the fact that we can get that back to us, and that positive and negative, love you guys too, feedback right back to us, it is the ultimate motivator to keep going. I mean, it really is. And that's why we're so excited with what's next for year two.
I can't wait. I think we'd still be doing it even if the numbers weren't what they were right now. I think above everything, we just had a passion to talk about the Mariners. We wanted to start this. We wanted to start it for a while, and we had some ideas. Yeah, maybe we still would have gotten some cool interviews throughout the year, and maybe we still would have had some unique ideas. I think we're both pretty creative with some of the stuff we had in mind when we started this thing. But the fact that it's been as fun as it's been, and we've gotten as much great feedback as we've gotten in year one of this thing, yeah, I think it only motivates us that much more. Like, to do all the stuff that we went out and did, and the fact that people seem to thoroughly enjoy it, like, truly, like, I hope it's coming through our mics and to you listening and watching right now, but really, like, we cannot appreciate it enough from the bottom of our hearts, the fact that you either take time out of your day to watch on YouTube or to listen, or even if you're just checking out a few social media clips, it means the world to us. To people that came up to us at the ballpark this year and said, love the show, or love all the social media content you guys do, all that stuff, like, really, like, it makes our day. And that's the stuff that makes us want to keep going, because I think, look, we love the Mariners. We love talking about the Mariners, and I think we'd still be doing this no matter what. But the fact people have been so nice about it and have been so, like, welcoming to us and interested, I guess, in what we have to say, is that's what's really pushing us, is all of you. So the fact all you guys have taken all this time to listen, it's awesome, man. We appreciate it beyond belief.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to the first day where you got to go to the ballpark. That was super cool. I'm thinking to the weekend we got to go to the ballpark before All-Star Week's the only weekend I actually got to go to the ballpark, since I obviously don't live there, unfortunately. But, like, just the getting to speak to guys like Ty Adcock, who eventually we turned that relationship into a fantastic podcast interview months later, but getting to introduce ourselves to him and talk to him on the field in person as just normal human beings is so cool. And then the All-Star Week experience, where we get to, meet all these people in person and see all these cool events and network with the Just Baseball guys, and eventually now join their network as one of their podcasts on the network, and just like have all this experience that we've been able to pack into a year. And now to think what we can do in year two is very exciting. I mean, Lyle's already listed some of the things that we're going to do. We are planning to go to spring training for a chunk of time, I think in March, but we will eventually lock that down. And some more just real cool stuff that goes on throughout the year. He mentioned at the beginning, potential for merch, potential for a live show if we can get a venue locked down and have people that actually want to come out and see us, and a whole bunch of other things, especially, and it all boils down to this too. We want to keep bringing you guys this right here, which will only continue to grow throughout this year. Let me give you an example, Lyle. Like, me and you joke all the time. Like, you go back and look at the 1 year ago today on TikTok, right? You go back and look at those.
Yep.
Look at one of those then, and then look at something we posted today, like our clip with Dom Canzone that came out on Thursday. I mean, wow.
Yeah, we had no clue what we were doing on TikTok back then. We were trying to learn on the fly, and that's a huge part of this too. We've learned as we've gone through the first year. Yes, we have journalism backgrounds. We had a little bit of experience with video editing, audio editing. Obviously, both of us have experience being on air. But doing a podcast in the new wave of social media with all the emphasis on short form content, we had to learn a lot of stuff on the fly. And I'm sure if we listen back to the stuff we did a year ago, right when we started, we probably cringe. But that's anybody that starts out doing this stuff. Nobody is good on your first episode. Nobody. Like, the first time you get behind a mic and start a podcast, unless you have 20 years in radio or broadcasting under your belt, nobody's knocking it out of the park on their first podcast. It's just everybody. Even the biggest podcasts in the world would say the same thing. And we are certainly not that. Nowhere close. But the fact we have learned as we've gone has been fun to watch too, and figure out what's worked for us, what hasn't. We've learned on the fly. We've adjusted our strategies, etc. So, and people have stuck along for the ride with that. And I'm really glad to see that people have and people have continued to enjoy it.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to pick your favorite podcast interview we've done in year one, what is it?
I have the same thing on my notes to ask you. We did not plan for that in advance, so it just shows you the wavelength of thinking here. I think it has to be Ty Pete. I mean, it's so close. We've had so many great ones, and I genuinely mean it. Every single person we've had on to interview has been awesome. Ty Pete, man, at least for me, it's going to take something pretty ridiculous to top that one on my list. For being 18 years old, just drafted, the fact he is so outgoing, huge smile on his face, like you can tell he's going to be a fan favorite, the fact he loves doing media stuff in his own right, like it felt like a very natural conversation. And again, like most high school draft picks don't have a bunch of media experience, but Ty, you would have thought he'd done 100 interviews before we talked to him, and he was unbelievable. I hope he is on not just again, but somewhat regularly. I certainly hope we get to catch up with him and do some content with him in spring training, because of all the guests we've had, if I had to pick, it's him. How about you? This
is so difficult. So I'm just going to pick the one that made me laugh the most, to be honest. Ty Pete was amazing, by the way. I echo everything you said. The first time we interviewed Softy.
Oh, that's a good one.
That I have not laughed as much in an interview as we did in that episode.
So the one where he was driving in the car back in April, right?
Yeah, he was driving in the car telling you to, what was the exact quote? I have it saved on my phone.
He said, "Stop with your stupid ass opinions on shortstops and payroll." Because I said, look, I'm not heartbroken that we didn't give Xander Bogaerts $300 million. So
Softy, again, he is 100% himself. And that one was awesome. Again, like Softy is as big time gets, and he made time for us. Unknown podcast, talking about some M's, and he's fantastic. He's been on twice this year, but that first one was awesome.
I have a sense, tell me if I'm wrong, you mentioned Ty Adcock, and I know you like the Ty Pete interview.
I said Ty Pete, actually.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know you
okay,
did,
cool.
But you talked about Ty Adcock a couple minutes ago, and I was going to say, it feels like maybe your favorite player interview was him, which is another great answer, because he was different in a sense than Ty Pete, but the fact he goes so in depth and loves to talk and gave us so much behind the scenes was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. He was like the detail we can follow up with Ty Adcock on, like just the little intricate details of questioning and answering that he gave us, and like this, just the story of like, 1 year ago today I was a catcher, and now I'm standing up on the mound next to George Kirby, and there are 30 scouts in front of us. Yeah. Like, I was not planning on playing Major League Baseball, and all of a sudden, again, like 6 months, 7, 8 months later, I'm ready to throw 95 in front of scouts and go in the top 10 rounds. And that's exactly what he did. And like, I'm just thinking, like let's put Ty Adcock into context. Like, that wasn't just good for player, period. That was good for person, period. Mm-hmm. Person, by the way, who is the exact same age as you and I. And I like to think of myself as a pretty thorough person. I'm not answering questions like he did. Mm-hmm. Just the amount of thought and structuring that goes into some of those answers, I think it just makes fascinating interview content. And you're right. Yeah, that was a good guess. That I think was my favorite player interview of the year. But I mean, they're all so good, man. They're all so good. Like, I still can't get over the fact that Taylor Saucedo got lost in Queen Anne somehow. By the way, when I was home for this past week, I probably walked some of the same streets that Mr. Saucedo did after he left the Kraken game at around the same time in the morning. And, well, no offense, Taylor, I knew where I was going as the local, but as the local of that area, I know Taylor's not. He's from the Northwest, but not that area. So I thought that'd be nice to throw in there. But like, I mean, it's all so great. The fact that big league baseball players have taken the time to talk to us is super cool.
Super cool. Like, so we've had 3 of them now this offseason, because we've had Saucedo, we've had Adcock, and we've had Dom Canzone. We'll give you a little spoiler for 2024. We're not done with player interviews yet for the offseason. We've got a couple more lined up. They do happen to be big leaguers, so stay tuned for that. That's just one thing. But yeah, it's really cool. And certainly, like, above everything else, you know what I really never imagined when we started this? Again, I thought in a perfect world, we could build up somewhat of a social media following in enough time. I thought we could do some cool content with fans around the ballpark, doing the man on the street interviews with enough time. That was one of the things I talked about when we started, is I thought doing interactive content like that on social media during the year would be cool. Never in a million years did I think, just a few months into starting this, we would be able to go talk to players and kind of shoot the shit with them and ask them fun questions and get some laughs out of them. That part blew me away. And you said, Lyle, I remember the first time you were at the ballpark. truthfully, I wish you'd made the trip up that weekend to be there with me, because if you want transparency, I'm sure I talked about it back when I did it. I was a nervous wreck the first time I was at the ballpark, because like, who the hell am I? We started some podcast. We've got a Tik Tok mic with us, like this little mini mic. Everybody else in the media has been there for years and years. And like the first couple times I was there, it's like head down, just mind your own business. You can stand at the back of the media scrum with Scott Service. Like, just don't bother anybody. And like the first couple times we were there, we hadn't started to do those player interviews yet. That was something we started to think of over time. We're like, how can we best utilize this, right? How can we best utilize our time there? We're like, well, here's an idea. And it turned into something that was pretty cool. And to do that, even when we started this thing, that I never had in mind. The fact that worked out and we were able to do that really blows me away. And I can't wait to keep doing it.
Yeah, being credentialed for a Major League Baseball team is awesome. Can I say the most important thing I think we did this year?
Sure.
Is the Jeff Baker interview. Most important. I had some feedback come my way that thought that was the best work we've done this year. And if I think back on that, in terms of truly like getting definitive real life things, real life, not like games, not like a baseball game, not fun things from someone's past. I mean, no, real life stuff that affect the fans, that affect the team, that affect the television, that affect future revenues, that affect jobs. That was it.
It's true. It's harsh in a lot of ways, like, because again, Jeff did not sugarcoat anything, but in the sense that we did a very much journalistic interview with him. That part for sure. That one we really used our journalism degrees on and really asked him some hard-hitting questions and questions that people wanted to know the answers to and things that maybe hadn't been talked about in the public yet. Yeah, that was not my single favorite interview we did this year, and it has nothing to do with Jeff. I think it was because that one just put me in a bad mood after the end of it, not because Jeff didn't give us good answers, because hearing what the Mariners' potential plans were going forward was kind of a tough pill to swallow. But no, I think you're onto something there with the fact that, yeah, we gave a lot of information to people that wasn't just, the fun mini mic stuff. It was, you guys do that stuff, but here's also some of the true hard-hitting stuff that you guys aren't breaking news on, but you are digging up more of a story on.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, that was good. I'm trying to think like anything else off the top of my head that. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what's funny? We did that Jeff Baker interview about mid-December, and 2 weeks prior, we were diving in on a Reddit report for why Shohei could potentially be an M. Like, that just shows you the different ends of the spectrum we've been on with this podcast. 1 week, we're sitting up here saying, Reddit said Shohei's a Mariner, therefore he's going to be a Mariner. And then 2 weeks later, we're sitting down with our thinking hats on, and we're asking Jeff Baker, how much longer is Root Sports going to be around? So we've tried to do a bit of everything on this podcast, which was our goal.
And Jeff Baker essentially laughed at 1 for 65. It's like 60. Yeah. Where would the $65 million come from?
Yeah. Again, like, we tried to have fun with the Shohei thing. Did we ever really think they were going to be favored over the Dodgers? No, of course not. We didn't really think a Reddit report meant he was going to be a Mariner, but we tried to have fun with it, right? Which is what we've tried to do with this podcast as a whole. We wanted to have fun. We wanted to bring a sense of fun. We didn't want to be the negative Nancys that some people in the Mariners world and on Twitter can often be. We
had 13 months of manifesting Shohei to the Mariners. 13. It was a pretty good run. I will say the next 13, there will be none of that, unfortunately. We're going to need a new ultimate conspiracy. I know you've thrown Murakami out there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he qualifies as the ultimate tier. Like, it's good. He's pretty good. Ultimate tier. Mm-hmm. You dig it up.
Juan Soto? Except he will not sign here.
No. Scott Boras will laugh.
Right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we want to wrap up, or we kind of talked about first year expectations, some of the stuff we were fortunate enough to do. I guess we talked a little bit about ideas for year 2, like the spring training thing we are absolutely planning to do and go get some what we think could be really cool content that week. between the ideas for a potential live show, merch? Is there anything else we've potentially talked about yet for doing in year 2?
Here's another question for you. What is the biggest thing you learned content-wise? Not the physical act of doing the content, but in how the modern content world is online. What was the biggest thing I think you learned?
Hook people in within the first 3 to 5 seconds. That's how short people's attention spans are on social media. If you do not have a line that hooks people in right away, they will scroll past, and the algorithm will reflect that. You could have great content within a minute's worth of a social media clip, but if your best stuff is toward the end, if it's 40, 45 seconds in, likelihood is most of the people that ever scrolled onto that post didn't get there. You have to hook people in fast within 3 to 5 seconds and draw their attention. And then they'll probably stick around and watch more of it. But people's attention spans these days are very, very short. So some of your best stuff that you say, put it at the start.
And the other thing I'll say, I just like being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so important. It's so underrated. Like, you just don't realize a lot of these places like post however many times every single day and how important that is to being successful. And I mean, you and I realized we had to do it every day. And at first it was like, holy shit. Like, we're a little overwhelmed with this stuff because we know how to edit now. So we don't have to think, we just do. But when you have to think and do every single day for the first 2 months, 3 months, strategizing what works here, hashtags there, yada, 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 man, like you're cramming your brain, and it's a lot. It's a little overwhelming. But once we finally broke through that barrier, I mean, it is literally just like, it's just kind of like a wheel now. Second note, thumbnails. They help. And titles on YouTube. Use YouTube. If you want to be a content creator, you want to do something like this, you say, I want to do a podcast. Go the extra mile and make it a YouTube podcast. Please, like, do it. Like, take the extra 30 minutes it takes to edit. Like, it's totally worth it.
Yeah. And there's something I had to learn a lot about is video editing, which I've done a little bit of in school, but I've learned way more about it doing this podcast than I ever did in school. Shout out our friend Victor, who's a savant with this stuff and has been very, very helpful to both of us and is a friend of ours. But he helped us early on show how to best edit video podcasts, especially efficiently. And when you have guests on, how to make sure everybody's fit onto the screen and all that stuff. So that part takes time. Also, here's a transition we made, or at least I made in the first few months. I had this old computer through the first few months of the podcast. And when I was editing on Premiere Pro, some of these video podcasts would take almost 2 hours to export. And I was like, this cannot be normal. And I remember talking to Victor about it. It's like, that's not normal. You might want to get a different computer. So I was like, well, we're starting to get pretty serious about this podcast. It feels like it's probably worth it. I need to save some time. I can't stay up till 3 a.m. editing these all the time. So I did. And now it takes a more normal amount of time to export. It's probably, to upload all the stuff to YouTube, period, it probably takes 15 to 20 minutes, I'll say, to export out of Premiere, and then another 15 minutes to upload to YouTube and everything and do all the descriptions and all that. But that's something we've learned. Again, like just doing all the editing and how to best edit and how to best make it a quality product. Like all things we've had to learn in the first year and trying to build our platform up. It's wild.
Don't tempt me, dog. I kind of want a new computer too, even though mine's not that old.
Oof.
Tempting. I have a lot of things I want to buy. And a lot of things we want to buy too for this podcast. So, but that's a good thing that we're making a little money now, so we can buy some things for the podcast, which is just amazing.
We have bought a couple things. So we bought a new mic to do player and fan content with, which is cool. It will be like, we'll still have the TikTok mics. If we need them for something, we can still definitely use them. But we did buy, like, what are they called? They're those Rode mics. It has an actual mic stick to it now.
It's the same concept. It's the same concept. They're just nicer.
Just nicer, better quality. It's an actual mic rather than the small, tiny mic. I'm sure we're going to get a mic flag for it with our logo on it at some point. But yeah, so we bought that stuff, and we bought some vlog sticks too. That's another thing we want to do in year 2 is if we have chances to vlog some cool stuff, we want to do more of that. We did it for All-Star Week, but we just had to do it on our iPhones, and it was okay. Like I enjoyed doing it, but we were like, this would be fun to do if we could actually get the quality content we want out of this. So there's another idea we have for year 2 is more video content, more vlogging, more taking you through like stuff that we're doing. So yeah, just all ideas that we have going forward. I think as time continues to go on, we're going to think of more and more cool things we could possibly do. And above everything, again, this is what we all keep coming back to. It's going to be you guys that are along for the ride for it. And because of all of you guys, it allows us to do this stuff. And we cannot appreciate it enough. I know I've said that about a million times in this segment, but I really do mean it. And like I've said throughout the year, I continue to double down on this. If you ever see us at the ballpark, not saying we're some celebrities, we're not, we're just two random dudes who have a podcast. But if you happen to listen or watch the show and you ever see us at the ballpark or spring training, wherever, please come up and say hi. We truly love talking to people. We love chopping it up with fans. We love just meeting new people. So if you see us at the ballpark, do not hesitate to come and stop us and say what's up. You're not bothering us. We promise. We're probably not doing anything that important. So open invitation on that end.
Or if you want to come visit me in Corvallis.
Or that. So yeah.
Yeah, we would appreciate it. And I, this year is full of unknowns for both of us. Mm-hmm. It is. We want to do big things with this podcast. Certainly. But this is big steps for both of us, too, in this next year. Mm-hmm. If you want to go listen to 2 weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks ago now, when this episode comes out, we talked about what's upcoming for our careers this next year. And next week, you'll be in New York. Next time you record, well, actually, no, next week you'll be fine. No, yeah, next week you'll be fine. 2 weeks from now, by the time we're recording, you'll be in New York looking for your next job. And I made it very transparent on my next one. Like, life is moving along for me. So that's like just another exciting wrinkle in all of this, of all this we're trying to do here with this podcast, and see, like, where are we at the end of this year? Like, we have an idea where the podcast is going to be. Where are we going to be? And how is that going to, like, impact how we do this? I mean, it's like, that's so fun to think about. I think there's a lesson, like, we learned today a little bit about how important intertwining our lives into this is. We can give analysis. I think we do a pretty good job of doing that. We talk about numbers. Everyone has access to fan graphs. We talk about it. That's fine. But how do our lives make it more interesting? And I think this year is a real chance to do that as well. Not only with stuff we do directly for this podcast, but things that have nothing to do with it at all that make it more interesting.
Yeah. Just stuff about us, what we're up to. That's why we talked about where our careers are headed. And people want updates on, well, what are you up to in New York, Lyle? Or what's new in Corvallis, TJ? Or what are you looking to do next? Stuff we can all talk about here in year two. We do love all the funny stuff we'll bring up on Speak Your Mind, and we do love having some laughs, which is just one of many reasons the two of us enjoy doing this. But I think that is another step we can take in year two, is just share a little bit more about, oh yeah, what are we really up to when we're not sitting here recording our podcast, when we're not out at the ballpark doing stuff for social media.
The numbers reflected that people were interested in that. So I think we're going to try and do that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And above all else, this is the last point I'll make. The reason we started this and what it all ties back to, like, forget all the stuff on YouTube, the social content, the interacting with fans and players, like all that stuff. What it boils down to, the reason we wanted to start this is it is two very good friends who love the Seattle Mariners and frankly just want to talk to each other about it. If you check the text between the two of us, I mean, a lot of it now over the last year has been planning stuff with the podcast. Not just that, but that is part of it. But it's just two people who like to talk about the Mariners. And we've done it for so long over the years since the two of us met our freshman year at Arizona State, both majoring in sports journalism. We've talked so much Mariners over the years. I think we finally got to the point where we said we both have on-air experience. We both have wanted to start a podcast. We talk about the team so much over text. Shouldn't we just start getting some mics and talking about it? And through a year, that's exactly what it's been. And through years 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and however long this keeps going, I think it's the exact same idea. It's just two good friends who genuinely love to talk about their favorite baseball team. So I really hope, if nothing else that you've heard from us throughout the year, that has resonated through to you guys.
Cheers to that.
TJ signs off. So, one final time. That'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to follow, download our episodes, leave us a 5-star review. Truly, those downloads and reviews help a ton. Go like, comment, subscribe on YouTube where our full video podcast is. And before I even plug our social media channels, I will say in wrap of all this, we are posting an end of the year social clip on New Year's Eve. So go check that out. It compiles everything we've done in the first year together. So we will post that on New Year's Eve. Make sure to be on the lookout for that. We had a bunch of fun putting it together. Where can you find that and all of our social media content? We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube Shorts, at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, from the bottom of our hearts, we truly cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in through all this time and all the time that you will continue to do moving forward. Thank you from both of us, and we will talk to you in year 2.